Hello. Sorry, there were some family dinner arrangements that I had to do, so I am late.
Oh, yeah. Sorry for not confirming. I thought I did, but it was only in my mind, unfortunately.
Oh, I thought you did too, so I was fully expecting to see you.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, it was just my mother and her friends are coming over for dinner, so we're doing this sous vide things. And the sous vide, you know what sous vide is? It's kind of interesting.
No, what is that?
You take vacuum packed food like meat and you put it in a pot of water with a heating element that is exactly calibrated. So you can cook something for an hour or two or maybe more, and it'll cook it really to the right temperature without overcooking.
How do you spell this? Sylvide.
It's I'll put it on the comments here.
Okay,
It's French for no air. Sous vide. That's that
interesting.
vacuum packing thing.
Always
I,
good to learn something new.
yeah, it's a
Love.
cool thing. It used to be super expensive for very high-end kitchens, and then it turns out now that you can buy them relatively cheaply, and the quality of the food is amazing. Any kind of meat, it cooks it just to the whatever medium rare, whatever you want, and then you can just finish it on the grill or something for a minute later. So it's really quite cool.
That is cool. Yeah. Huh.
So I have spent the last hour or so on a visual thing. I'm just gonna, I'll show you in a second here. So many windows. I don't know if anyone else is joining us, but we have things to talk about. Right, so, okay, let's things on the top of the screen. That was my music. So here on our publishing page, it's going to view it properly. We have the book covers are now on here, the ones that are on the printed. So what I've
Oh,
done is
great.
I've added, I made sure the visual meta is correct. I manually worked on that for all of them. So you see I'm downloading one here,
Hmm.
and it shows up with the correct cover. So adding the cover to the actual PDF has been the big thing today.
Nice.
Just want to check that they're all correct. Download speed is not as horrible as normal today. Number two, future text. Very good. We'll do three. Four is already done, of course. Somebody taught me this trick. I think it was Fabian, maybe, of on a link to Dropbox. If you do equals one rather than equals zero at the very end, it forces a download.
Oh, really?
It's so useful because otherwise people try to read in the web browser, which doesn't make me very happy.
Yeah,
Bit
can
ridiculous.
imagine.
So
Yeah.
that,
By the way, about that, it is really ridiculous. I think I started to realize it when I started to, look a bit at the history of the browser, how ridiculous it is that there are so the like everything else than HTML has very limited support in browsers.
yeah, 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 I would agree with that. And browsers are great for what they are designed for, but I think quite a few people want to use them for more than what they were designed for, and that's where we really get problems. So okay, so now I've added all three to my own library, and here we are. Oh, okay, so here's a problem. Three is
Hmm.
written in the wrong way.
Ah, yeah.
So I'll show you how I fix that because that's kind of relevant. There's a weirdness with the selection, but okay, so if I now go in Reader, I go Library, Manage Library, Reveal Document in Library. future of text 3. I'm going to just, hang on. No, I'm just going to delete it in the library actually. So delete. Delete this weirdness here. And then we have on the desktop, we have, so we open with Acrobat. It's the only way I have access to editing the actual visual meta once it's there. In the PDF. Future of text. Removing all this. 1, 2, 3. That's it. So I now should be able to open that and just interrogate it in Reader. Just have to wait for it to parse. Plop, plop, plop. But yeah, the title's right. It doesn't have everything readable there. That was a bit weird. You see, the very first future of text book was written, the visual meta was added completely manually.
Uh-huh.
So it's I had to modify it now. Also, that I shouldn't be the author, I should be editor. That's correct. Oh, hang on. 3. That should have been last year, right? I may have tried to be too clever here. Yeah. The file name is really important. So you were saying something about this addressability issue of document that was primarily for Fabienne, but I'd love to hear more about that.
Oh, you mean Activity Pub or?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you remember our conversation with? I forgot their names at your place. It was about this sort of publishing system. These 3 guys. One of them was from the U.S. and another from
Are you talking about
Ecuador.
Minter?
Minter, yes.
Yeah.
So that's a good starting point to talk about it. Like, one of the really hard things of creating such a system, Ted Nelson can probably agree, is to sort of get people to use it.
Yes.
So the dream is clear, that everybody can publish, and everybody reads it, and vice versa. And I was thinking about the PDF verse, a name you coined at some point, and I was thinking that, in a way, all these smart people, they publish PDFs, but where do they publish it? Usually, these days, well, I guess it depends, but a lot of people, they publish something on their social profile, on their Twitter or their LinkedIn or whatever, but it's always in these kind of places. And over the years, a new protocol was added to the W3C, the Internet Standards Organization, and it's called Activity Pub, and it's basically allows everybody to publish anything from anywhere. So
the full document or a reference to it?
Also the full document. So imagine, so Mastodon and WordPress, they allow this, for example, but Twitter doesn't. But imagine that you are you still there?
I'm here.
Oh,
just,
hi, Rob.
We're just trying
Hi.
to.
No, I can't. Oh,
Good to see you. Where are you right now? In Egypt, or where is this?
South America, right? I mean, at least the picture.
Oh, you're muted, Rob.
Still muted. Still muted.
Okay. Sorry I'm late. My daughter called.
That's a good reason. Yeah, today is very casual. It is so far just the three of us. Leon and I have been talking a little bit about timelines, but also a lot of AI augmented reading and stuff. So we're
Yeah.
contributing a little bit and also looking a little bit at the book itself as an artifact today.
Yeah. I sent somebody to your to the website, and his reaction was, well, there was this thing that allowed you to, manipulate PDFs, and that seemed like it might be useful, but doesn't seem very groundbreaking.
No, that's true. It's it's funny. So Final Cut, the Apple video editing software, there was an update this week, and it goes, there's so many videos you can watch on YouTube where people are going into, okay, so you can now do Command Shift Option G to make this thing, and then you can, it's such in depth. People who do visual work, photographers and videographers, also audio, with Logic and so on. There's such a high level of literacy to see what the different software can do. But people who do text-based stuff in general, oh my God, they hardly ever know even how to do Command B, to bold something or to copy. So it becomes very, very difficult to show what the differences are because most people just don't use the different things.
Yeah. Well, I'm sending him to the book. So I was going to wait till Monday before I gave him the link.
Yeah, the book, I've been working a little bit on making it a bit prettier now. So on the website, I've removed reference to the journal because our journal kind of comes and goes. There's book and symposium, and you have volume 1, 2, 3. And now the download has the proper cover. It's all very consistent. So these are the first three, and then we completely changed style for this one.
Yeah, that's a beauty.
Yeah, except that's the wrong cover. It
That's
says
the wrong cover.
It says volume 4. It should just say 4.
Oh,
I
okay.
have to fix that. Oh, it's some nonsense, isn't there?
Do it on the fly.
So yeah. So, but yeah, when we were talking now, Leon was just explaining something called Activity Pub, which is an interesting way for people to what something really strange happened here. Sorry about that. To share documents like PDFs. So I would love to hear some more about that.
Yeah, I will maybe if I share my screen, it's a bit easier to follow instead of very
Absolutely.
abstract.
Sure, thank you.
So a lot of people. Well, let me first. A lot of people, also young people, they basically they're basically using they are moving away from Facebook, and they use it's called the Fediverse. I don't know if it rings a bell, but it's basically a network of websites which do exactly the same as, for example, Instagram. This is Instagram, and this is proprietary and closed, and this is sort of all your content gets stuck in here, as Frode calls it, a sort of information ghetto or photo ghetto. But you also have like, so the Fediverse version of this is called a pixel fed. And the funny thing is that, yeah, you can, of course, create an account here. Just like you can go to Mastodon, which is a Fediverse version of Twitter. But the funny thing is that it doesn't matter where you create your account, you can follow anything on any website everywhere. So let's say I like these pictures of Christiana. So I want to follow her, but I don't necessarily want to create an account on this server. Then I can just I can copy the link. I can also copy this if it's enough. And then on my Mastodon account, the Fediverse Twitter, I can just paste it. And if I press enter, then you can here see there's a follow button. So now I can basically follow her activities on this other website. So this is a very sort of a brain exercise, which is completely different than what we're used to with Twitter and Instagram and all these things. So everything is sort of connected, and that connection is called Activity Pub.
Okay.
I'm almost done. And that is basically the sort of, yeah, that happens in the background. And the funny thing, and why I was talking to Frode about.
Can you forgive me just 1 minute? Sorry, I just have to go. Sorry, 1 minute.
He froze.
Frode froze.
Frode froze.
Or you mean the video?
Video froze. Yeah. Are you in Budapest?
Budapest, Hungary. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was there briefly in.
Oh, really?
In the late 90s.
Oh, wow. That must have been a lot different back then.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I went to a conference in Debrecen.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know that place. Yeah.
Yeah. And they had one tram line called tram line number 1. And I told somebody there, I said, you should rename it tram line number 6. So it makes it sound like it's a big city.
That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that sounds a bit more serious.
Yeah. Well, it was an interesting conference. It was basically partly future of text, hypertext stuff. And I think it was computers in the humanities was a sort of general title for it. But, yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about a conference in Debrecen, in Hungary, where Rob was participating years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. That could
Oh,
have
yeah.
been.
Sorry, to finish up the this sort of plug for Activity Pub is that I was thinking, since Frode is sort of working on a library, and many people are publishing, you can also add a file, a PDF, as a post, and other people can notice that this has been posted. In theory, reader could sort of follow activity or follow people, publishers, via Activity Pub, because I don't know, more and more people are using it. Even WordPress is now, it's sort of a next generation RSS. I don't know if that rings a bell, but
Absolutely, yes.
in a sort of more modern way. So yeah, I just wanted to drop this name. This is I think this is from a sort of publishing perspective, this is a pretty new paradigm, which has already a lot of users. Here you can see, for example, all kinds of services which are already sort of exposing Activity Pub to the world, and which makes everything very, very integrated. And I think it's pretty interesting, this sort of being able to follow topics and people. So you can also just
I have an important question.
yeah, okay.
Where are the documents stored?
They are stored on the website or services from which the person posts from.
Aha, okay.
And the rest of the consumers, they can just grab a copy and save it locally.
Because I tried Mastodon, and I realized that it had absolutely no storage capability, and even to integrate it, to have storage on my own server would have been horrible. So I closed down my Mastodon server. I had it for about a year, spent a ton of money. But an RSS feed is something I'm very attracted to. So if this behaves in an analogous way, that would be very, very good to for us to look at, including the issue we have of taking things in and out of XR. It could be very useful for that as well. Maybe.
Yeah, I find it also interesting, especially since so many people are coming up with their own solutions, like this Minter group. Yeah, it might not be a crazy idea to just rely on something, a mechanism which people already use. And I know 100% sure that Mastodon and all these services which support Activity Pub also support RSS.
Right.
Anyways, it could be something interesting for the reader library to have sort of PDFs dripping into the library based on persons publishing PDFs over RSS or Activity Pub.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So what I'm doing now is I'll just do it so I don't ruin my brain here, and then I'll tell you what I've done in a second. So these are citations inside Future Text 4. So now I'm going to spawn or create a brand new Future Text 4. It'll take maybe 20 seconds to render it. It'll render without a cover, but it's about addressability, what you're talking about. So that's what I'm addressing now. But you see, there we go, addressing addressability. It does a lot of work to produce one of these books. So, boom. If I now click here on this citation, I get Future Text 1, 2, I get Future Text 2, 3, I get Future Text 3. So now if I click on this, yeah, it opens. Because I had it in my library, it opens it instantly. Just wanted to make sure that I hadn't messed up on the naming conventions because of the work we did.
Oh yeah, the volume 3.
Here's volume 1. It takes a few seconds to parse the whole book before we get this cooler cover. And then it's a normal book. Right, so this, by the way, is how we do a cover. We delete the cover that was there because it's rubbish. And then we click here on Reader, insert from file. This is real quick. Make sure this is the right features. Yeah. And then I'm just gonna, we're not at launching till Monday. Delete that, take the new one, put it in Dropbox, copy Dropbox link. And on this page, which does the WordPress blog for our publishing sites, delete the current link, make a new one, delete the 0, make it a 1 to make it a download thing. Make sure this is all correct. Update, boom. So now anybody who goes to our site, when they download the preview PDF here, they will get a version that has instant links to our, sorry, couldn't see you guys, I just had to get you back. So yeah, the multiple levels of addressability is really, really important, because documents now, unless they're web links, they don't connect. So this whole activity is cool. Now, question for you, Rob, because there's been many different emails going around to make sure you don't completely waste your time. Why did you think you were coming here today? Was it a specific topic?
No.
Oh, okay.
I just like to stay in touch, and I'm trying to get up to speed. I wasn't quite sure what to say to Glenn about the purpose of the future of text, and he thought what he saw wasn't very futuristic. But the other thing I'm interested in now is I'm working on a book, and I decided to give my child genius a Apple Vision Pro 3rd generation. And so I'm imagining beyond the current about to appear version. So I'm trying to find out more things about what's going to be possible. And I've also gotten very interested in the amplituhedron, which I had never heard of until a few days ago.
I've never heard of it until now.
Yeah, it's a new physics solution to, it's behind quantum. It's a geometric object, which they call a joule. It's quite pretty, but it has eliminated the need for time and space as variables.
Well, time is already eliminated in the wonderful book that I've been reading and that you've been reading.
I read it.
Yeah,
I read it. Yeah.
So that's an interesting development. I'm just going to address your first thing first, and that is the stuff that we're doing doesn't look very futuristic. That's the funny thing. Even in Reader, you can do all kinds of wild things like view color keywords and blah, blah, blah. That's important to keep working on, I think. However, don't forget, there's 5,000 years worth of people chipping away at making text better. And when Fabian asked us last year, as an example, to take the current book that we had then and take every page and put it on a wall in a huge mosaic to see how that would help us look at the book. I didn't do it physically, but I did do it virtually. I built in Mozilla Hubs a room like that. And then I did another version where it was just the front page of every article. It turned out it was so accessible to see what is there. And Leon and I, we spent some time this week with all kinds of AI summaries and all these things. And it just, a lot of it is already done. The AI summaries, you will never trust them in the sense of showing you a large book. You will always want to read the author's introduction.
Yeah.
So, we go into zoom, and then often we come back to simple stuff. Now, hopefully with XR having a larger workspace, things will change. Just visually, literally having a much larger canvas, I think will change a lot. The actual 3D nature of it, if you have a large volume of information, sure, that's cool. But even though Brandel and Fabienne hate the idea of just more screens, I think more screens will be very, very useful for most of what we're going to do with text, because we want it framed. Otherwise, it's hard to read.
Yep. Well, I'm looking forward to being able to read it on my faded out living room wall.
Exactly. I got a text from Brandel, which is very rare. That's so relevant to this. Here it is. You sent me a USDZ file, which I've only opened on my phone so far, but I'm going to open it on my Mac, see if you can see it. Oh, it's opening in
Right.
Xcode for some reason. And the reason he sent it and the reason I'm sharing it should be apparent soon. Here it is. Here we go. Ta-da! It's an article in XR that happens to be viewable now like this.
Yeah.
And when reading it on my iPhone, just it's sharp and clear.
It is, yes.
Oh yeah, it's definitely futuristic. Is it useful? That's another issue.
That's the question.
You know, even my wife is very happy with her Apple Watch. And the technology behind them, of course, is absolutely insane. But what do we use it for? Mostly quite mundane things, right? I turned on the AI companion. I thought it would automatically come on. It didn't seem like it did last time, Leon. We had a meeting, so let's just see. It ticked by mistake. So yeah, the thing that we spent this week on was talking about timeline stuff, and then we tried to find out when is it actually useful to have a timeline. It isn't very often that it's useful. So to find really accessible ways for when you actually want a timeline is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I had a question about that too. When I did Portal, I created a timeline of the future. And Deanie's had me updating it because the future caught up with us, which is a feature of not dying earlier. So I've had to push everything forward. I was a little too enthusiastic about the changes that would come.
Okay, so my comment on this is very simple. When it comes to the future, you know, somebody said the future's already here. It's just not distributed evenly. You know, fair enough.
That's William Gibson.
Thank you. I think it's very, very simple. The future is going to happen if we have available metadata. If we don't have available metadata, the future, in this sense, simply will not happen. My definition of metadata for context is the data which says what other data is. So, you know, looking behind you with such a cool view, it is not that hard to spend a couple of million to make that an incredible interactive environment. You know, that's what games do. But to make it a work thing that people can share information, it has to be shareable metadata. And it's the most boring thing I've ever realized, but it's also the most fundamental, probably. Something Doug never had to think about because his environment was free and open. There wasn't, it was all there.
There is a game with this set in Babylon.
Oh, it's Babylon. Oh,
I think it's Babylon.
now that you say it. I think the
Well,
Hanging Gardens had some blue walls as well, but yeah.
there's a ziggurat there. And that's probably the Ishtar Gate.
That's funny, the transcription. It said, well, there's a cigarette, smoking cigarette. It got that wrong. But the Ishtar Gate, it got correct. It got the Ishtar Gate. How did it do that? Random.
Random decision. I love the cigarette. That's good.
One. So yeah,
I would like to say something about that.
please.
Um, I, I, I have started to agree more and more with this almost extremely boring vision of the future, because if you start talking about the future, people indeed are sort of longing for very complex, impressive solutions, like the game in Babylon you described, or a very expensive Hollywood movie, or in a sense, a blockchain is also an incredibly complex and impressive achievement. However, it is just describing a ledger, and a ledger you can also put on paper. So if you really imagine sort of, you know, what would you take on a trip to Mars, or for the survival of humanity? It's not going to be a blockchain or a game about Babylon. It's going to be text. It's going to be the most compressed and sort of transferable type of knowledge. And that is going to be text, and probably structured text, which means metadata, and perhaps even some interactive metadata so that you can navigate it. So I think that is to that in that direction. I'm starting to think more and more.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And Windsurf has been very instrumental in saying what's so special in XR. You know, isn't it just having a screen? And I kind of come to the conclusion that I agree with him, but even though it is screens, it's actually phenomenally useful. So, Rob, this is something that we talked about earlier in the week. We talked about, you know, how to scale things if we're doing a timeline. So maybe you would set fuzziness here. Maybe that's useful or not. I don't know. And then there's also timelines where you don't need that. But this is the other thing that I wanted to show. This is what Leon and I were working on. Currently in Author, when you define something, you get this dialogue where you can tag it as a person, institution, software, and so on. And then you write the glossary definition. So we were thinking maybe, excuse me, maybe we should allow you to, no, that's not what I was talking about. I was confused by my own dialogue. I apologize. In Reader, we have AI now. It's just ChatGPT through an API. We call it Ask AI. So anybody can edit their own prompts. So this is the dialogue for that. There's a title that's listed, but also the preface, which is a nicer word than prompt for people who don't know what it is here. So what if we do this? Because we did some tests of trying to extract names from a book about ancient Rome, and then trying to get the information about what people there were in that text. And then finally, when were they born? So we could list them on a timeline, which is what you see here. It did actually do quite a good job, but it refused to do it all in one go. So that's why we're thinking of this idea. You have one prompt or preface here. If you click a plus, you can have another one. And that means the result of the first one is now what the second one will process, and so on. You can layer it as many times as you like. And then, Leon, this is slightly different probably from what you saw. So in the results, because here I just no mention of the other thing. And the results, you can actually click Save Results. And the results will be saved as an appendix to that document in a way that is connected to this prompt. So that means that if someone in the, thank you. That means that, let's say this one here has been done for the document, it would have, this is just an interface thing. People can design it any way they want, but the idea is maybe there's a bullet in front of it. So now the user knows that this is already done. Click on this and it'll instantly show the result because it's saved. So this is where Leon and I have been working on the ideas of where in the workflow to put the AI and not to use AI constantly because it's just so slow. So this is now on the Visual Meta website. If you go down to implementing, we have temporary appendices. We'll go to the AI one. And this is something we discussed in the group recently, this highlighted bit. So this is, for instance, a summary. So this is the summary text. The prompt was this. And it may know the author, the engine, and the operation date. All of this is useful, but if you don't have it, you don't have it, right? And each one of these would have their own pages, so you could easily throw it away if you don't want it anymore. So, yeah. That was
So is
get
is
us up to
this
speed.
how definite is this approach?
I'll show you one more important thing. And by the way, this is my super confidential secret Jira, where I have everything for what I plan to do with the software. So this is what's happening right now. This is what's done. I need an update before Monday, obviously, with Reader. So just checking something. So this is how I communicate with my programmer. I can't answer how definite, but if it's not that much work, then he'll do it. It's so weird when it's the lowest one. It's always okay. So here I just write. Yeah, so this is the key. The reason I did this is this results list here may very well have errors in it. So why not just make that an editable window? So if there's an error, you just delete it. Doesn't have to be more fancy. And then the saving the result shouldn't be that hard because already we have the ability here to edit, view, and remove metadata. And so view metadata just skips to the visual meta. But if we do edit metadata, which is not a good idea because this metadata is created by author, so it's much richer than what this dialogue has. This dialogue is basically for doing it on other documents. The share system you talked about today, that can be integrated into this addressability. Does it only need a web address or more?
Well, it's called an Activity Pub address. It looks like an email address, but it actually starts with an @ symbol as well. So it's basically two @ symbols, and based on that, you can sort of request all the posts and basically scan all the PDFs in those posts. So yeah, that's how it would work. And then perhaps then the user could maybe do check boxes like, yeah, I want those in my reader library or something. Well, it's very interesting. I really like it, not only for PDF, but it seems to be interesting for many types of if everybody becomes a publisher and we can easily follow them and sort of download their submitted content or files automatically, that allows for very cool distributed libraries.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I have
oh, please.
I have one question um, about reader. What are the sort of rule of thumbs to sort of decide not to include a feature? Like what is the philosophy? There must be some kind of philosophy behind it, where certain features won't make it and other features might make it into reader.
Hang on, this is from the programmer, so 1 second. Hang on, this is gonna take just a second.
Oh, then Rob, could you maybe tell me if this new physics, which was behind quantum physics, is this a purely mathematical thing, as in they haven't really been able to test anything in the real world with it? Or is it sort of both? They have been performing some tests.
It's purely mathematical, as I understand it.
Uh-huh.
If you look up amplituhedron on Wikipedia, you'll find an absolutely incomprehensible description. But a friend of mine sent me a link to a conversation between Don Hoffman and an interviewer and another guy who's a sort of spiritual guru of some kind from England. And Hoffman talks about the amplituhedron, and he said this is the end of space-time as a fundamental principle of the universe. But the problem with the amplituhedron is that the math is I don't understand the math at all. So, but behind that is something called decorative permutations. So if you want the link to this video, this YouTube video, I can send it.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Let's see, I'll put it in the there's a guy named Spira. Okay, let's see. Put this in the chat. Can I do for chat? Here we go.
So this is very, very exciting. And I can answer your previous question really briefly, Leon, and then we can look more at this. What makes it into reader and author is very unprofessional. It's basically what I feel like that day. I put it in the JIRA list and then I rejig the priorities like an idiot. I'm much more of an art type person than thoroughly thinking engineer. And I accept my imagination, even though it's my strongest trait, is very limited. I believe that we must go to the forest to understand what it's like to be in the forest. So for me, it's almost a matter of just build something, damn it, and then we change it. And programmers often hate that because they want things well spec'd. So it's difficult to communicate with them. It's like, what you did was absolutely perfect, but it's rubbish and it's my fault and it's okay to fix it, So the mindsets are interesting. However, the other kind of underlying thing is it has to be useful, is what I go to. And sometimes, in order to get to something useful, it has to be completely ridiculous. But underlying that at the very bottom of it, it is whatever is cheapest to do. So I try to look at what we have and see how we can modify it to do this other thing, whatever it might be. I rarely think just straight out of the box. Now, this amplituhedron thing is kind of amazing, I think, for two reasons. Number one, my personal philosophy goes to the most fundamental part of the universe is interactions, not things or time or anything else. So it was nice to read the book on time where they're basically saying that now.
Yep.
And also, in gaming, at least some games, you have this spider graph, which is an amplituhedron in 2D. So, you know, let's say you choose a rifle and you can say it shoots very powerfully, but it reloads slowly, you know, so you build a shape. So I tried to do this when we did a globe once of the different countries of the world, so you could see their shapes easily and compare them. To have this in 3D and I'm guessing more D is probably one of those things that will be very um, at home in XR, even though XR is only 3D, of course. But this kind of way of looking at things is really fascinating.
I'm pursuing it.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Maybe it also aligns with your approach to reader, Frode, because you said you're not going for this sort of predetermined philosophy kind of feature acceptance. You're sort of like you're doing it as you go, and I think the problem with time and space and time is that, like, in hindsight, you would think that a lot of genius persons are had some kind of super plan, or some kind, they are super disciplined, and they really thought it and planned it very well. While in reality, when you start to meet those people, probably if I would think Rob is a genius writer because I read Portal, and he must be genius and he must have thought it out perfectly up front. Then when I talk to Rob, then probably it will turn out that it was maybe sometimes he filtered out a lot of stuff, like he also told in last. So it's a very messy road, probably, how Rob got to that book. And so yeah, I think that is sometimes most of the times the greatest things, they are yeah, they happen very in a very unstructured way.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think it's very important to enable that because, like I said, I think the most fundamental thing in the universe is interactivity. I think that is something that we should really exploit with these digital systems by letting the user act on that and interact with things rather than have things pre-rendered. That's why I don't like the idea of CD-ROMs and all of that. It bothers me. Even yeah, it needs to be as richly interactive as possible. And the only way you get that is through metadata. There was something
It's
here
always good to get high on metadata with you.
high on metadata.
What metadata have you been smoking?
Yeah, I wish. There was something along the lines of let's see. Oh, okay. Yeah. So when people on Mac and when sorry on iPhone and all of that, when we communicate with each other, we often do the little thumb on the text message, you know. I think that is one of the biggest innovations in text over the last 20 years.
What
So
is? Sorry, I missed.
I'll show you. So when you get a text message, I think, yeah, anyway, what you can do instead of writing a reply, you can do a thumbs up or a heart
Oh,
and so on. And here you can see like the range. I know it's pretty standard, but
right.
I find that it's adding a new level of grammar. I think it's absolutely incredible. So that's the kind of thing that is real and useful. You know, right now, if I reply to my wife with the word okay, it feels a bit stupid. It's much better with a thumbs up or a ha ha or a heart or whatever. It's a new way of communicating. I don't even know who invented it. I know it was Apple. I have the history, the official history. So someone there. But I'm wondering how we're going to augment text in the future through something that may end up being that mundane. Mundane just means useful. It was not useful, excuse me, in use.
Well, I have to push back a bit on that because I noticed that it could also be a language thing. Because I noticed that a lot of words in English, they need a melody with it to sort of indicate where, you know, which variation of that word is being meant. And when I arrived in Hungary, I noticed that people some people got away with having zero melody and being very explicit. Everybody understood, and nobody was annoyed. And I realized that in their language there is a sort of like everything is like you can add it, just like you add sort of this thumbs up to the message. You can add sounds or extra pieces, which sort of makes it more clear what the direction and tone is without using a melody. So yeah, it's really weird. I also don't fully understand how this works, but I have a feeling that these smileys and hearts are sort of making up for a certain problem, which I don't fully understand.
This is very important for two reasons. One, so Tim Brooks, who is in one of our books, is written books and done a lot of work on lots of different writing systems. So that it really goes towards what you're saying. The book just came out. And also the thing that I find so fascinating is in our brains, cells are not obviously connected randomly or even all over the place. There are highways, you know, there are chunks of cells going here, here, and here. So when you look at human speech, like Chinese speech, Mandarin particularly, tone changes the word. My father could never really understand that. So he learned what he thought was how to say something is cool or good, wowla. And then when you said it to someone in the office, they said, what do you mean the lift is broken? Because it's wowla, right? And where to choose to put meaning, if it's in tone or in rhythm or in grammar, something has to be obviously in the brain where it fits. Like English people, if I say to someone, you're going to go down to the big brown house with the three windows, you wouldn't start saying the house with the three windows that is brown, right? That there is something in our brains that orders it for us. In school, they try to teach us this as grammar, and it's really annoying because it's actually innate. So when you're talking about visual language as well, I'm really, really excited by this jewel and this kind of thing, because hopefully we will have more useful shapes. And I'm not sure that we will ever get past text to convey meaning in something the size of a page. What I think these other things will do is help us connect bigger volumes of text, because text is both visual and not visual. Text is really visual for helping you understand, but it is very not visual to help you discriminate. It doesn't show differences. So if you have 20 academic papers on a table, unless you really know them and you look at the cover, that's one thing, but the text itself doesn't communicate very well. And that's really an interesting challenge. Rob has thoughts on this.
Supposed to be abstracts.
Still text.
Yeah.
And it's not glanceable at all. You cannot glance and just know what that is. And that's, hopefully in more XR environments. But again, I have to say, if you have the metadata, if you know who wrote the documents, if you have some keywords about the documents, if you know when they were written, if you know maybe the institutions involved, then you can start doing interesting things with color, shape, clustering, all that good stuff. But otherwise, you just have the raw text. And if you have the raw text, you might as well read the raw text in most cases.
Well, so you don't think that eventually we will end up with Rob in Babylon, that text will be taken by all kinds of symbols, and we're sort of going back to some kind of well, not hieroglyph, but so you don't associate it with shallow language, these hearts and these jewels.
I think, first of all, the discussion we're having now is really important and it needs to keep going and going. It seems very likely that the very first human writing was to count, and it wasn't doing pictures. Pictures came later. If we look at cave paintings, it's very much dots and things to try to understand things. A photograph in a video is very evocative, but it is very evocative of one thing. Right? Like, look at the screen right now, the three of us. You know, three white men with not a lot of hair, all of us. Right? But it's still each one of us, when we look, none of us are an icon. Right? So the text, just by having those words, it becomes generalized. I think that's really, really powerful. But the little hieroglyph emoticon things will absolutely add color. No question about that. But, you know, when do we need that kind of color? And also, I don't think in our community we've looked enough at what kind of text and when, because if you are new to a field and you want to go through thousands of academic documents, then very well you may benefit from summaries, AI summaries and stuff. And when you're reading a document, you do want to read the original author, except for maybe some augmentations, like a heavy passage, you know, can you simplify it and that kind of stuff. But you're never going to get past the human brain actually needing to do work to learn. Yeah, sorry, Rob. Bad news. There was a tweet the other day. Someone said, I hope we get past education just being repetition, talking about young children. And someone else had to point out that repetition is actually how we learn. It shouldn't only be repetition, but, you know, there is that.
Could you say that again?
Someone was complaining that education for the young was. Are you making me repeat? Sorry, my mother. One second. You.
Sorry. I'm gonna have to go soon.
All right, so you have some work to do in Babylon, the tower, probably.
Yeah, that's well. My interest is really in Sumerian, but I was collecting images of various Mesopotamian cities and found this one. I have a couple of others. I'd be more.
Rob, you know that Denise Schmant-Besseret is part of our
Yeah,
community,
of course.
right?
I know her.
Oh, you know her.
I met her years ago.
Oh, that's fantastic. She is just wow. Yeah, I'm just so grateful that she bothered to be part of this.
She's part of your little circle?
Yes. She's not often involved because she is quite elderly and trying to write her life story, but she did contribute an article and she does every once in a while say, hey, good going, that kind of stuff. So it's really, really lovely.
Great. She probably won't remember me, but I met her at the Stanford Archaeology Center where I was a visiting scholar for a while.
That is so super cool. So this is really, so this whole jewel thing and Denise. So I don't know how much you know about this, Leon, but she persists based on the archaeological evidence that writing, at least cuneiform writing, first came from having little sculptures of different things like bales of hay or donkeys or whatever it might be. And then after a while, to make it easier, they put them inside these little clay things. So there's like a contract, like I owe you 3 donkeys. We put the 3 donkeys in here and, you know, you hold on to that. And they thought, hang on a second, I don't know how many donkeys are inside. So they then take the shape of the donkey, whatever it was. So, let's say it was a triangle, and notched it on the outside so you could see. And then after a while, they realized they may not need the stuff inside, they just have that. Isn't there some kind of analogy to that inside-outside impression object 2D that we can learn from for the future of text?
That's interesting.
It's almost a symbol of trust. The symbol is something people agreed on to trust. That's very interesting.
Well, then you had to create a way of sealing the envelope, which is just a clay ball or so, the way you read the contract was by breaking it. And that meant it was fulfilled. And then if you were storing a bunch of these things somewhere, like in an archive, you would put a rope on the door and then put clay over the rope, like wax on an envelope, so that you could protect your data storage. You're constantly creating layers of security.
Wow.
So trust is not easily come by, in fact.
Wow.
That's an interesting point, because text in and of itself is trust. Because we're talking today about AI and fake news and all of that stuff, which of course are real issues, but you've always still had to decide whether you trust or not that which is written. So the expense of it, which I think came later because clay was pretty cheap, the expense of it that gave the notion of authority coming from the fact that it's in a book, which we still have. Where did you learn that? TikTok or a book?
Yeah.
There's no truth behind either one necessarily. So that's really interesting. Thank you for reminding me of that.
It's part of the mental immunity project I'm involved in.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned
Mental immunity.
How do we defend against bad ideas or fake news? Do we have built into the mental structure of the way we think a kind of immune system that helps, sort of bullshit detector that would help us discern what's valuable, interesting, or true information and discard what isn't?
I'm not that interested in truth anymore. So without getting too political, as it were, on the radio today, because of the Gazan war has restarted today, there was an interview with somebody representing the United Nations and saying this is horrible. And then there was a kind of a screaming, angry man talking on behalf of the Israeli government, saying we're being so gentle and careful, we're only killing 20,000 people, so, that's no big deal. So when it comes to something like that, whether it's 20,000 or 15,000, a lot of the facts don't matter. It really comes down to what people feel that they, oh, sorry, my wife is asking for a number. I have to do this real quick. It comes down to kind of your moral position for good and bad, meaning that, for instance, in this situation with these two groups of people, I don't think facts would have a Palestinian sitting at home being bombed saying, it's okay, Israel deserves this. Facts aren't going to do that. Similarly, I can't see an Israeli who feel they're being bombed and attacked by Hamas saying, no, we should just stop and let them live in peace. I think there needs to be another dimension to that. And a lot of that is, well, as I would phrase it, love. We need to love more.
But maybe you are more, aren't you? Yeah, oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
No, I'm just thinking we need a little vial of potion to distribute.
Potion.
A love
That will
potion.
be
No, I mean,
I
that's
love potion.
the pursuit of that is a human project since forever.
Yeah, it is, and it's it's really annoying because when opportunity goes up, it goes up in the good direction and the bad direction. It always goes like this. You're never going to have an innovation in the world that only goes towards goodness or towards badness, right? And now we're living in a part of time that the opportunities are so massive. One of them is communication with social media. The other one is, of course, bubbles in social media. But I mean, it is crazy, though, isn't it, to look at the James Webb Space Telescope and look at what's being discovered there, and then look in the Middle East where Jesus was born, and have these three religions still throwing things at each other. What the hell is wrong with our species, right?
Allegedly born.
Well, okay.
But
I think it's pretty likely he was a historical figure. I'm not saying he's the son of God or anything like that, but he is noted in Roman records and all of that stuff. So anyway, Christianity was made by Paul, so that's a whole different level
Yep.
of it.
Yep, different story.
Yeah, yeah.
But aren't you conflating good with truth? So, for example, this telescope is a certain truth. It's a scientific truth,
There's no
and
such thing
the
as
stuff you're
scientific truth.
describing. Sorry.
There's no such thing as scientific truth.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to sort of like say that it's of course it's not a democracy science, and but I'm trying to say that there is like so this telescope is something which can be agreed on without any people. So it's sort of like it can be written down and people can reproduce it. And the stuff you're describing in Israel is a sort of I would say personal truths versus personal truths.
Yeah,
So
but
so I would say it's two different things.
All truth is provisional.
I think truth is an incredibly naive and childish and useless concept because it's used for so many things. And also the word fact. I mean, the word fact comes from criminal justice, which is why we have the expression, accessory after the fact. That means accessory after the theft or the crime. So, in science, of course, what we have are theories and data, basically, more, but basically that. And I just think when it comes to humans, and this is the thing that I wrote in my horrible article at the end of the book, a lot of it has to do with identity. And it finally struck me last week, which is why I wrote this really badly worded article, that the reason we have a brain, any creature, is to move. That's why brains were developed, it looks like. Movement. If you're just static, just eating something, you don't need a brain. There is even some kind of a creature that lives in a river, but once it attaches to the side, it eats its brain because it doesn't need it anymore. So I'm mentioning that because I think identity is social movement. So if you identify as a certain kind of person, and that is then your geography of where you are in social and political space. So if you don't have a developed identity of that, you don't know where you are safe, who your people are, and how you can move. So I think it is very analogous. And that's why I'm hoping that systems can be created where people are more inclusively part of bigger thing. All right, so let's have a look at this nonsense.
Yeah, so to sort of about this truth thing, I think that this sums it up pretty well. That you have like basically four directions of truth. So you have like individual truths and collective truths, and then there is like interior and exterior. And so you have these four truths: I, the personal, and we, cultural, what you see in Gaza, and then you have it's. So you have like societal truths and also behavioral. And I think that the moment when these things, when you just talk about the single word truth or facts, then these words, they are very useless because you have no idea what in which quadrant somebody is using this word truth or fact or good or bad, because something can be good in a cultural quadrant. And so it's very confusing, these words. It became a bit like God. And I think the word fact, truth, and God, they eventually become gamed. So they started out as a very useful term when it was like like in the beginning, and then these terms became gamed, and that's very hard to get out of.
Yeah.
And this is actually what enables wars to happen. So that, like, if societies don't sort of educate people about, sort of creating a sort of spectrum and um, perhaps, a spectrum around these words, then if that doesn't happen, then everybody keeps fighting over these words.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think these dimensions are definitely worthwhile looking at. I also think that, I mean, I don't know if you've seen my social media picture now, but and it's relevant to this discussion. I now, when I'm out and about, I wear two pins on my jacket. One is the Jewish Star of David, the other one is the Palestinian flag. It's partly out of support, but it's also partly a social experiment. So far, no one seems to have even noticed. But it's supposed to be small signaling of support rather than anti anything. So, I do think we need to look at what you're talking about here, but we also just need to be inclusive. And inclusive shouldn't mean, whatever you do, it's fine. But it do means we should try to be. My father kept talking about what's the word? Tolerance. The need for tolerance in the world. So I think a lot of our field is kind of outside of this, because no matter what powerful intellectual tools and powerful software we build, people are going to use it from their moral compass point of view.
Well, and if you look at the structures, if you look at how you can have a majority of people who are tolerant, but that can be easily gamed. So you will always end up, I think that's a bit of the story of life, and perhaps why there was a pharaoh at some point, is that the winners of this, who game the system, they sort of they can just have, let's say, a less good moral compass, and just decide to go to do a war or something. So it's tricky. We need an activity pub for politics, where things are more where everybody can publish their moral, and then I don't know. It's super complex.
It is super complex, but the thing is, it seems when we look at a problem, the best way to find a solution is to always go one level up, right? So to take the example of Gaza and Israel right now, it's quite clear that people are angry on all kinds of sides. That's fine. That's emotion. That's what that is. That's not, you can't have a reasoned discussion with that, and that's okay. But if you start looking, if you expressly have a forum where you say, okay, there are 5 times as many Israelis as Palestinians. I can't remember I think it's around 9-10 million Israelis, 2 million Palestinians, at least in Gaza. How in the world can they get to a situation where they have a positively functioning society, right? And then someone else will disagree with that definition. But if there is a discussion around what do you want the end game to be, and as long as it doesn't mean killing all the other guys, then a discussion can start. But actually finding what the discussion should be is really difficult, because otherwise it's just throwing blame back and forth, saying we're better than you because that. You're horrible because that. I mean, come on, that'll go on forever, obviously, right? So,
But sorry, but don't you think it's incredibly easy to get this conversation going even from the start? But you just need a community of other countries to sort of offer ramp downs on both sides. And I think there are clear reasons why that doesn't happen, because there is some kind of there are stakeholders in this whole thing, and they basically decide when is it time for stakeholders. So this has nothing to do with people you're talking about, these big groups of people. It's more like these few and the stakeholders who decide on these things.
yeah,
I think.
yeah, to an extent. I mean, so I'm going to pause for a bit here.